There's a lot of footage for this, which unfortunately I've lost or is corrupt and I couldn't find. But I want to share my story, where it all started. We need to throw it back to 2018, where it all began. June 2018, it's the World Cup. Every single person who's into football wants to see their country lift the trophy and be victorious. As always, England fans chanting it's coming home. This will be the year, this year's different. To give context, at this time in my life, I was in around £40,000 worth of debt. I didn't really have much direction. I had ambition, I knew I wanted more, but I didn't have much direction. I'm also a father of two, have responsibilities, and I was pretty much running away from the fact that I didn't know where to turn. It was clear that I was in a position that wasn't good, and there wasn't looking like there was many ways out. But I was doing what society deemed normal. I had a poor relationship with money. I remember debt collectors knocking on the door and my dad sort of using me to answer the door to be like, listen mate, can you answer the door, say I'm not in, or say I'm in the bath, and hopefully they'll go away. I had a very interesting childhood, one that I now understand more. Now I'm older and more mature, and I've done the work on these things and I'm at peace with these things. But my relationship with money was all over the place. My dad would borrow money off people. My dad was in a bad place. He just wasn't well. And I used that as my kind of relationship with money, I guess. And I'd gotten myself into the classic debt trap. You turn 18, I'd left home early, turn 18, you get access to loans and credit cards, and you just think, let's go, man. Go into restaurants with the girls and not having enough money to pay the bill and having to use like 2 credit cards to pay it. And as a parent, I cannot describe how that makes you feel. It is the most humiliating, soul-ripping experience ever. And you have to start asking yourself, when the fuck is this going to change? When are you going to do something about your life? When are you going to stop waiting on winning that lottery, or that freaking scratch card working, or some kind of inheritance landing on your lap? When are you going to just fucking do the thing that you keep saying you're going to do? I remember being in the pub and it'd be your round and I'd be looking at which credit card to put it on to not be embarrassed to go back and go, lads, I've got no dough. But putting rounds of drinks on credit cards and stuff, and you just think like, brother, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? When I look back now, but it's also part of my journey, and I'm not scared of that. I'm not afraid of that. Forward a little bit, England were in the semi-finals against Croatia, and we all remember that Kieran Trippier free kick. We were making plans to go to the final, and we thought it was actually coming home. Obviously that night we didn't win. I remember walking out the pub, there was a food van over the road. I got some chicken nuggets, and I walked home crying. I was just bawling my eyes out, and I remember being like, dude, this isn't good, this isn't healthy. You're binge drinking, eating loads of shit, not sleeping very much. Like, what are you doing? Where is your life going? And again, a story I've probably not shared online. I lost my father to alcohol when I was 8, and I remember watching him pick me up from school, and he would he'd have like a briefcase. He used to carry a briefcase around, and he'd be like, no, I've got my paperwork in here, I've got all this, but it would just be full of Carlin or Strongbow, and it was a pretty weird time for a child to experience. And you know what, like, he was trying to do his thing and nothing against him, but it was a strange part in my life. And I always had this weird kind of relationship with alcohol. I wasn't much of a fan. When I used to drink it, I was like, don't even taste nice, like, why am I doing this? And getting home and having to put one foot on the floor because the room's spinning and you're not sure where you are, and the kids were a lot younger and they're trying to want to play or chat, and you're like, I'm hungover, and it's all self-inflicted bullshit and nonsense. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, where am I going? So that was the moment where I said, it's time to change. That was the moment where I said, fine, I need to cut myself off from the group of people I'm associating with. No disrespect to any of them, big ups yourselves if you're watching. I need to cut myself off, I need to take responsibility, and I need to find some direction in my life. Every employer I've ever had has always said, you're too ambitious, you've got too big a vision, like, maybe curb it a little bit. And I was like, no, like, I got this. And that then started the journey for me. That was when I kind of found trading, kind of started getting into it through the signals and all the other stuff. But it was around that time where I remember being in the pub and I was like, I just made 50 quid on GJ because I followed this guy. And I remember thinking there's clearly more to life than this, and maybe I can work for myself one day. And that kind of started the journey. But the first thing I had to do was I had to sit down with myself and I had to go, how am I going to sort these finances out? I'm in over my head, I've got bills coming out my ears and I don't have enough coming in. Getting a job that I could obviously, pay for everything, doing extra overtime and living by the 50-30-20 rule. The main thing for me was getting the debt gone. And anyone here, I've had a lot of messages from a lot of you lately about being in debt. Focus on getting rid of it first. It's the most important thing. If you've not read the book, The Richest Man in Babylon or The Psychology of Money, highly recommend reading them. They're incredible books. And The Richest Man in Babylon always talks about how when you get paid, you should take 10% of that for yourself immediately and live off 90%. And if you can do that, you will build true riches and wealth. And that was kind of what I started to do. That was a book I read at that time. And I started to just take money aside, stop doing the things like going out to the pub or buying shitty food. I started saving more and putting that money aside and working on that debt. And again, the 50-30-20 rule, most of it is 50% for your bills, 30% wants, 20% for like investing or debt. I flipped it on its head and I basically did 50% for my bills because I had to. And then it was 30% for like debts, and saving. I wasn't doing much saving, I was just clearing debt. And then 20% was for wants, and I had to live a little bit strict. The kids didn't go without, they did everything. Steph was amazing through this time. She really, 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 really helped. And, I thank her so much for that because she's been the one person that's backed me from day one. Like, she's never said to me, babe, I think you need to just go and do this, get a real job. She's always supported anything. And then COVID happened.
You must stay at home.
So we've jumped forward a little bit here, but it's key to understand that during those next 2 years, my main focus was working on my health, was cutting out alcohol, was cutting out going out with the wrong people, was getting my head in the books, was really deciding where I wanted to go. This saw me going down a route of fashion modeling, content creating, working with brands such as Vision Express, Kurt Geiger, Boohoo, ASOS, lots of up and coming brands, Be Inspired, Jim King and a few other brands, just trying to find ways to make money online. I then dabbled with e-commerce and selling all sorts of stuff. I was selling Calvin Klein boxers. I was selling, not my own ones by the way, because that's dead weird. Even though I have to admit, I got asked a few times to send people my boxers, which looking back, I should have done it. No, I'm joking. Once we'd been locked down, that was when I really decided I needed to get my head in the game. I was working at Network Rail at the time, but I was working from home in the sense of didn't have to do a lot. Then eventually, as measures got less strict, I obviously had to go in and I worked nights. And it's funny because I always wanted that job. I always believed it was a job for life. And when I got it, people were like, you've cracked it. It's a job for life. And I absolutely hated every minute of it. But during that time, I'd continued working on myself and I decided, I was in a competent enough position to try and take the plunge of this full-time trading. There was FTMO at the time, which was, something new that I'd never heard of. My issue was always before, if I only had more capital, I'd be all right. And I took the plunge. I remember leaving work. I remember writing the email to my boss and he was bamboozled by my plans, but he was like, you know what, fair play, respect it. Now it's important to also highlight at this point, I had managed to save a decent amount of emergency fund. I'd got my debt wasn't gone at all. It was still very present, but I'd managed to earn more money that I was able to save more. And that money that was gonna go on debt, I'd said to myself, let me just have it as an emergency fund. If this all goes wrong, I can survive. I was always focused on the family and making sure we can pay the bills. The debt payments, I was past the point now of just paying debt, of just paying interest on the debt. I was actually clearing the debt. That was when the battles really began. That was when it really, really tested me. Now that I'd left work and I'd kind of created this, I'm working for myself, you wake up on the first day and you feel euphoric with this, oh my God, I'm my own boss. But now shit's real. Now you've actually got to go and make continuous money and pay those bills, and you don't have a guarantee, you don't have an employer or a contract. You are just in this big wide world. I decided to knock off a lot of the e-commerce stuff I was doing. I'd obviously left the job and I'd gone all in on trading. Now, yes, I made it work, and during the period of the end of 2020 and 2021, I managed to completely become debt free. I managed to move us out of where we were living, and I managed to completely transform mine and my family's lives. Now, I didn't become a multimillionaire, I didn't become a millionaire, I didn't even make 500 grand, right? But I was making money that I'd not yet ever experienced, and I was making enough to get us out of a bad situation. And right all the wrongs and all the things that I'd done and learn from all the lessons and the experiences and hardships that I'd had. I was able to go out for a meal without worrying about, can we afford this? We were able to go to nice places, go to nice restaurants, get picked up, book holidays, actually have family holidays, and start to create this life that I'd once envisioned. Clearly life still had plenty in store for me. Fast forward to the present. I've been doing this now for 4 years, working for myself. I've been trading for 4 years full time. I've learned some incredible lessons, and many a lesson I've documented on this channel, from losing funding accounts to getting them back, to losing them again, to being a part of businesses that didn't work, to getting cut out of deals, to whatever you can think of. I've documented and I've shared it all. I've created that freedom and that life that I always envisioned. Now it is about continuously learning to grow and build and reach those millions and become that multi-millionaire that I know I can be and I know I will be. It's not happened yet, but it will happen. But life had a few things that I had to clearly navigate through first, and lessons I had to learn that I perhaps hadn't learned, even though I thought I hadn't. And now I'm feeling, you know, in the best position I've ever been in, mentally, physically. Last week we were sat down at dinner, and my youngest Mia we were just talking, and she said, "Daddy, at school today, we had to write down someone that inspires us and why they inspire us." And I was like, "Oh, cool. Like, that's cool. Like, who did you write?" Thinking, you know, maybe it's like some YouTuber, Mr. Beast or something that she watches. And she said, "I write down you, Daddy, because you inspire me." And that was it. That was where it really hit me. I've come a long way from that person that, you know, was in debt, in a pub, wearing Strongbow and cider over his t-shirt, coming home at night and staying on the sofa and just going to work and, you know, thinking that was what life had for me, and, you know, assuming there was nothing else out there. And, you know, that hit me in the feels, and that kind of made me want to make this video, because if you're someone that's struggling, if you're someone that's finding it hard, you know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and there is definitely a way out. But you have to be accountable. You have to take responsibility for your actions and the cards that you're dealt. We're all dealt with different cards, but the reality of it is you just got to use them to your advantage. Life's short, life's precious. Don't waste that life or that opportunity because you're scared or you're worried about failing. I've failed publicly many a times. People have made fun of me. People might not like me. But I know that I've always been true to myself. I've stuck to my values, and I can look back on my journey and be like, I'm proud of me. Maybe not everything was done right at the time, but it was with the information I had, and I made the decisions, and I own those decisions. And I just want anybody watching this to know that it will get better, and it can get better. You're going to look back one day and you're going to be like, wow. You know, so big ups to every single person out there who's trying to do better, be better, do more with their life. Big ups to all the parents, big ups to all the single mums and dads. Big ups to everybody out there that is just trying to do this whole life thing, because it's not easy, and a lot of the things we're taught at school, they don't serve us when we get older, and it's something I'm very conscious of now with the kids at school, and I'm trying to give them lessons and give them little insights into things that I had to learn. I learned all of that on my own. There was no mentor, there was no guidance. I was kind of just winging it, and I had, you know, my wingman next to me, which was Steph, who backed me through absolutely everything, and I respect her and love her to bits. I'm looking forward to looking back on the next couple of years now and seeing how far I progress and how far I've come from this moment onwards. I've got a lot of big goals, a lot of memories and things I want to create and do with the girls. They're growing up quick. Time isn't infinite. Do that thing you've always wanted to do. Start that business, start that YouTube channel. I tell you what, the one thing I wish I started sooner was YouTube. I wish I was documenting back then all this sort of stuff, because today when I've tried to find footage and tried to find different things, it's not been there, and I know it's out there somewhere, and I'm like, should have filmed it. But, you know, the best time to start is now. So whatever it is, just get it done, people. Back yourself, believe in yourself, and most importantly, enjoy the journey. Catch you all in a bit. Peace and love, gang.